The United Nations Biodiversity Conference COP15 ended in Canada on the 19th of December. That saw the signing of a key agreement to guide global action on nature through to 2030. Representatives from 188 governments gathered in Montreal for 2 weeks for the important summit. Chaired by China and hosted by Canada, COP15 resulted in the adoption of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, GBF, on the last day of negotiations. I caught up with the Secretary-General of the Commonwealth of Nations, Baroness Patricia Scotland, soon before she addressed the COP15 Biodiversity Conference, and she was speaking from London. Let's start with COP15, the UN Biodiversity Summit, which is currently underway. And I know that you're going to be addressing this summit virtually. What's going to be your message? What do you want to communicate?
I want to communicate that the world has no more time. These issues are of fundamental importance to our member states and pose an existential threat. You know that we have 56 countries in our Commonwealth, and we are responsible for 11 million square kilometres of arable land and 8.8 million square kilometres of forest. But we're also, in our membership, been the guardians of the oceans for millennia. So the responsibility on our 56 member states is great. But for most of them, particularly those of us who lived in the global south, we made little or no contribution to the climatic disaster that we are now facing. But you know, the truth is, we are the first generation to really suffer from the aberrant impacts of climate change. But we're the last generation to be able to do anything about it. And I think all of us, every single person alive today, will be judged for what we do and what we fail to do. And our names will be remembered. And it's up to us as to what will they be remembered for. Will they say that we dithered and dallied whilst the world disintegrated? Or will they say that we were bold and brave and we did that which we knew was right in order to save our world? So my message is we can do this, we must do this, but we can only do it through solidarity.
There's a number of issues on the table in terms of actually how to get this done. One of the things is financing. And yesterday we saw a group of developing nations walk out of the summit in protest because of the slow pace and, lack of agreement, literally, in terms of funding. How do we overcome this? Because it does seem to be a huge hurdle, not just at the Biodiversity Summit, but COP27 also faced the same issue.
Well, I am not surprised that there was a heightened level of frustration. I think that comes because of the heightened level of fear and facing the reality that not everyone seems to understand that this is a non-negotiable moment of time in terms of having to do something. We haven't got a choice about remaining silent or sitting on our hands. We know that we need $4 trillion US dollars in order to deliver the Paris agenda. We know that more than 10 years ago, in 2009, the global north and those who were more developed committed to give the developing countries $100 billion to help with mitigation and adaptation. Hasn't happened. We know that that gap between the 400 trillion we need and the money we have is huge. We've only got about 630 billion so far. So we really have to step up. And it's not just governments. We are going to have to use the best of businesses, foundations, and others. Last year, 450 companies and businesses did step forward and they made a huge contribution, but it's not enough. And so I think what the people who express their frustration about this whole situation did obviously walk out. But the good thing is, Peter, they came back. And they came back to work and to struggle and to discuss, because they know they can't walk away. None of us can walk away. We have to stand up and fight. And it's so much better if we're fighting not with each other, but against the terrible things that are happening in our world. We've got no time to be divided. You know, this is the time for us to unite. And division's not going to help us. We need total global solidarity. Because I genuinely believe we can do this, but we have to choose to do it together. And no one can opt out. Nobody.
So is it political will or a lack of understanding about the urgency of it that's causing this lethargy, perhaps tardiness in terms of getting the job done, and especially getting the financing done?
I think it isn't really a lack of understanding. What it is a lot of people are very, very scared right now. If you look at the number of exogenous shocks, every country has suffered. We've had COVID, we've had climate disasters, we've had economic implosion because many of the countries had the economies locked down. We are now facing a rising level of hunger. The World Food Programme talks about a ring of fire, and the fact that poverty for the first time in a very long time is going up, and many of our countries are within that ring of fire. And the developing countries are seeing very clearly they have problems of their own. So there is a tendency for some to say, I'm going to do a me first. But the problem is, what did we learn out of COVID? That I'm not going to be safe unless you're safe. And that everything that I do for you, I'm actually doing it for me. And so we really have to understand that in saving the countries who are small and making sure that they have a future, we are saving our own future. And the small and developing countries aren't waiting for someone else to come and save them. They're fighting. They're fighting. But the problem is, it doesn't matter how hard and how high they aspire to go, if the rest of the world doesn't change their behavior, then these countries will have no future. And I think nothing is more painful and more difficult than saying, firstly, I didn't create the situation which I'm in. Secondly, I haven't got the money to fix the creation of the situation someone else has created for me. And it doesn't matter how hard I try, how much I sacrifice, how much I reduce my own carbon footprint, it will be like nothing to what others are doing. And that sense of impotence, I think, is very real. But I think what they're trying to say to the rest of the world, it will be me today, I understand that, but my friend, it will be you tomorrow. And when I'm gone, who is going to come to rescue you? So we only have one world. We hold that world in common. If you look at where we've got air, sand, land, and sea. This is our planet. We better save it.
You mentioned the word common, and you are leading the Commonwealth as Secretary General. I am curious about what you've been able to do, because you are almost a microcosm of the globe, developed nations, developing nations, all coming together for the common good, I suspect. And I just wonder, with these issues, what have you been able to do as the Commonwealth? Well,
I'm really proud of what our 56 have done. If you look right back to 1989, it was the Commonwealth who were the very first to identify climate change as an existential threat for the world. And in 1989, in Langkawi, the Commonwealth said, if we don't address this issue, we are going to be in a parlous state. And one of the sad things I find is when I go back and I read that declaration in Langkawi, everything they predicted tragically has come true. But we didn't give up. We kept on fighting and kept on fighting. And look what happened in Malta in 2015. The Commonwealth said, we're going to have to address this. We need something that's enforceable. We need 2 degrees and a 1.5 aspirational target. And that was November 2015. We took that to Paris in 2015 in December. What did Paris agree? They agreed 2 degrees, 1.5, and an aspirational target and enforceability. And look at what happened in Kigali this year in June. Our members came together after 27 years of trying to get loss and damage. They said, we, the 56, we are going to commit. We are going to put loss and damage on the agenda if it's the last thing we do. And they did. And that was in July. And those 56 countries went to COP27, pushed at the African COP. We got loss and damage on the agenda. And now we have to fight for the implementation. So what we, the 56 coming from all 5 corners, if you like, of the globe and all the oceans do, when we come together, we can try and create a pathway for everybody else. So we've been fighting this for so long, and we're absolutely not giving up. If you look at what we've done by creating the Living Lands Charter, what we've done in relation to the Blue Charter and the creation of the Climate Finance Access Hub, with just £1.5 million, we've already delivered more than 53 million into the hands of our member states, and we've got almost £900 million in the pipeline. And we're putting advisors into the countries to help our members to make those applications. And we've already trained more than 2,000 officials across the Commonwealth. So we're not just talking, we really are doing, and we're trying to find all the tools that we can to help all of our members, big ones, small ones, rich ones, poor ones, just to do better, to stand in solidarity with each other and to be the difference that we need to see in the world. And I'm absolutely determined that we will succeed.
A little bit earlier, you said that we've got to do this together. And I think you wrote somewhere that governments must play their part and keep their promises. And the private sector too has to come to the party. Absolutely. Perhaps as we conclude our conversation, talk to us a little bit about this need for us to all work together and to keep our promises.
Well, I think, human genius got us into this mess, and human genius is going to have to get us out. So we need to have nature-based solutions. We need science and technology, and we need that to come from all sectors. We know that business is incredibly innovative and creative, but so are our governments, so are our scientists. And look at what's just happened now with the whole issue of fusion. There are new creative things happening every minute of every day, and I praise God for that. But so when we come out of Montreal, we have to have a science-based, empirically verified plan to which we then commit the money. We have to fund it. There's no point about having aspirational targets if we don't fund it, and it will take all of us to fund it, every single one. And we can't let anyone off the hook, and we can't leave anyone behind. And so I would say we can do this. The choice is ours. And I hope that every single one in Montreal will understand this historic moment and just make the right choice. People are constantly saying things like, well, I don't know whether we should do this, we should do nothing. Doing nothing is a choice. Doing nothing has consequences. Doing nothing means our world will disintegrate and disappear. And all the countries of our Commonwealth are determined to do everything they can together to be that difference. And I want to say to people, don't be depressed. Be angry if you want, but you really need to put that anger and energy into doing what we can do to turn this around. And there is still time. Not a lot of time, Peter. Not a lot, but enough. Enough if we are determined and if we choose, each of us, to do the right thing. So I'm choosing. I hope everyone will choose with me.
Baroness Patricia Scotland, Commonwealth Secretary General, thank you so much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.